Hello, everyone. Welcome back to 14 Days of Solitude. This is Karina and Vienna.
Hi, guys.
We're here to teach you 14 coping strategies over 14 days to help you in times of crisis. We want to help you build up your resiliency so that you feel strong and able to handle no matter what this time of unknown brings to you. So today we are at day 10, and day 10, we invite you to be of service. Yeah, Vienna, did you say to me that before you initially texted me, you were feeling anxiety, but you didn't really talk about why you were feeling anxiety
Mm,
until yesterday we had our own little conversation. Can you share a little bit more about that, if you will?
sure. Yeah, just before Karina and I thought of this idea, I was having anxiety because I was putting a lot of pressure on myself. And I was saying, I'm a therapist, I'm a service provider, and I feel like I'm not doing anything to help anybody. Um, I feel useless, is really how I felt, which we're going to discuss a little bit more. And then this is where Karina and I thought of the idea to come up with this 14 days so that we can be of service by giving you guys coping skills during this time, right? But even throughout this time, it's been another recurring thought, especially with having to stay home and being stuck in the house and being bored. The thought comes up again. I'm useless. I'm not doing anything to help. What am I doing to serve my community? um, so we want to talk about that feeling, because I know if I've been having those thoughts and feelings, that plenty of other people might be having that as well.
Yeah. And yesterday, well, it was 2 nights ago, but yesterday I started actually letting myself talk about it. I got out my journal and I was journaling, and the first thing I wrote was, I feel useless. And part of my whole story and shame thing is like never doing enough. I want to help people and I want to be there for people, but I don't always know where the help is needed. And in that sense, you know, I was that was really coming up for me, that like I feel like I'm not contributing. I feel like I'm not sharing the value that I have. I feel abundantly full right now because I pretty much took the last 2 years off with my son, to being pregnant, and then the first year with being with him, and 2020 was the year to like, all right, I'm ready to do this again, and then boom, all of this comes,
Mhm.
and I just have all this energy to hold space for people. But doing something like this in a virtual platform, we're sharing these videos, but we don't always get people responding. Like maybe we'll get likes here and there. So if you're watching this, let us know that you're on the other side, because I know me, I feel a little bit like, okay, I'm sharing this. I think I'm helping people, but I'm not getting that satisfaction of that exchange, knowing that people are, receiving what I'm giving. Sometimes I feel like it's just going out into the ethers and then
Mhm.
dissolving. So if you guys have been benefited from this, please let us know. Please leave comments, not just a like, but engage with us. Send us a message. I really appreciate the people who have sent me messages and say how much they appreciate us taking the time to do this. Um, but yeah, just be in exchange with us. Let this be a time of connection rather than a time of isolation and mindless consuming of content. I don't want that either. Um,
Mhm.
so anyway, of course, in my whole thing, I was like, well, how can I be of service in more ways? Well, here Vienna and I are in New York, and New York, I would say, got hit the hardest the first, because we had just have so many people traveling into New York, especially in the beginning. And so I really think our governor, Andrew Cuomo, is doing a pretty good job at helping everyone have the information that they need to know that they are doing what they can on their side as a government to make sure that they're putting together emergency hospitals, they're purchasing items from other countries at like an higher rate just to have the supplies that are needed to protect the workers. But in one of the emails they sent to us letting us know all these things they're doing, there was a link for professionals to come out of retirement or even students to step up and help out. And they're like, we need you. So anything from doctors to nurses, to mental health workers. And, you know, I have 3 years of a master's degree in mental health counseling, but I never finished it because when I moved to New York, the school, my online school that I went to, wasn't like approved here or whatever. So I couldn't finish my internship. And that bugs me so much. And you know, sharing that is vulnerable for me because, you know, I really own it that it's like, no, I'm a coach and I am the founder of the Center for Highly Sensitive People. I don't believe I need the degree. I feel like I got the education I needed, but not having that piece of paper was like really hurting me. So I was like, you know what? Screw it. I've been coaching, I've been like counseling for 7 years now, plus more. Even in college, I was a part of a peer crisis hotline. Like, I have the training to work with people in crisis. So I'm just going to fill out this application. And if they deny me because I'm not a licensed therapist, okay, fine. But if they really need the help, they're going to take the help. And I know my abilities. So I would be
Mhm.
willing to provide, you know, volunteer um, mental health virtual services. You know, I'm not sure what system they have set up, but I know that they're going to need a lot of people. So I just felt really called to step up in that way. And so I, you know, like I said, I filled out the application. I haven't heard from them yet. I don't know what's going to come of it. But if any of you feel like you really want to be of service and there are little opportunities that come by, but you have that voice in your head that says like, you're not qualified to do that. You can't do that. You're not good enough. You don't have the degree, whatever it is for you. I just really want you to challenge that and know that this is the time to be confident in what your abilities and your strengths are because people need help.
Mhm.
So, you know, even if it's just like you have an abundance of something. Vienna, there was something you said to me when we were talking yesterday about abundance. Can you share that line
Mhm.
with me if you remember?
Sure. Excuse me. So again, because I was feeling that we're not helping, what can I do to help people? I actually talked to my own therapist about it because I was struggling with these feelings. And my therapist gave me this idea and said, but look at what you and your friend Karina are doing. You're sharing your abundance with everyone. You're offering this service for free. You're giving of yourselves for free. You're working hard doing this. So that's what she meant by abundance. It's just, the gifts that Karina and I naturally have, along with the research that we've done, both self taught, going to school, we're sharing that with you guys. So that's how we're sharing our abundance. So it's important to ask yourself, what do I have to give to others? What's an abundance quality of myself that I always have to give?
Yeah, for sure. So giving from wherever you're abundant in your life right now. If it's your time, how can you give your time in a way that will be helpful? If you have if you're in a part of the country where you have a lot of produce or fruit trees or whatever, and you want to donate some food to people who, who maybe you're in a food oasis, consider donating the food in that way. Whatever it is that you have an abundance of. I do believe everyone has an abundance of something, even if it's like family support or connection or something intangible. Those are just as valuable, especially during times like this. So don't downplay whatever your abundance is. Don't downplay it.
Mhm.
And then if you feel called to be of service or help in any way, then ask yourself, how can I, right? And then you look for the opportunity. So in a few videos and a few of my emails, I was kept saying that, like, we want to do these strategies so that we can be present and then look for the opportunities. But I didn't really explain that. So I wanted to say in this video that you're looking for the opportunities to step up, to be a leader, to be of service. And those are the opportunities that I mean. And we will talk about for the people who are not able to be of service right now, and the service they need to do is for themselves. But if you are someone who is filled up right now and you're just sitting around, you're bored and you just have so much to give, this is the time to look for those opportunities. Let your intuition guide you on where you can show up and be of service.
Mhm. Yes.
So, um, so let's talk a little bit about the people who are not feeling full right now. Let's bring that
Mhm.
conversation in. And if you're not feeling full right now and you cannot be of service, we want to acknowledge that as well.
Mhm.
Okay.
Right. So, um, Right, we don't want this to be we don't want anyone to feel forced to give, we don't wanna put pressure on anybody. This when we're saying being of service, just like Karina said, this also means to yourself if you need it. Um, so that takes checking in with yourself, and seeing what you need, seeing, am I filled up? Can I offer to give? Or do I feel depleted? Do I need to take care of myself right now? Because if you're depleted and you try to give, then most likely what you're giving might not be very effective, or if even if it is, you're going to drain yourself a little bit more. So I like to say, fill your cup up first. um, I also just thought of this activity I used to do when I worked with kids. I used to have a teddy bear in my office. This was years ago, and I would ask how they're feeling, and I would say, "Do you need a hug, or can you afford to give a hug today?" And, like, I just would say that, this bear has all these hugs stored inside of him for when people need it or they wanna give. So, that would be my little opportunity to have them check in with themselves, and it was so great because even as kids, they knew what they needed. They were able to say, "I need a hug today," and they'd hug the bear, or I feel good. I'm going to give another kid a hug. So um, maybe we need to get in touch with our inner child. That can be an easy way to tell. Like if anyone has a stuffed animal, if you want to do that, do I feel like I need a hug or can I give a
Mhm. Yeah.
hug?
And even if you initially felt inspired to give and step up and help, but especially if you're highly sensitive, you've kind of reached that max capacity of your ability to give and you're kind of tapped out, or if you pay attention to your cycle, if you're a woman and it's just that time of the month where your energy is more depleted and it's time to have your period. This is a real thing for women. Like our energy is not the same at all points in the month, and to honor that, just honor that. Let that be your time to check in. Even men need that time to check in, because men will get fatigued just as much as women, except we are kind of forced with it. Men can kind of push through sometimes, and I know lots of women who do push through, but I do think that that's what has caused men in the past to have a lower life expectancy. They don't have that thing in their body to tell them just like slow down and stop.
Mm,
So really, it will allow your immune system and your body to recalibrate if you give yourself that time. Um,
yes.
yeah.
Mm,
Okay. So take a step back, see what your cycle is. What time in your cycle. Know that at different times in your cycle, you might be able to give a little bit more. But knowing what your boundary is, let's talk a little bit about that.
sure. Yep. Again, just checking in with yourself, knowing your signs when you start to get burnt out as well. This could be being irritable or frustrated or snappy, maybe with your partner, or anyone else. If for me personally, if I know I'm burnt out, let's say someone sends me a text message like, "Hey, I need to vent. Can I talk to you?" And I'm just like, "Oh," like of course I want to help as much as possible, but it's that initial feeling you get. So if I know that that's going to make me exhausted, maybe I'll check in and see if it could wait, and or see if I need to take care of myself for a little bit first, do my activities to kind of fill up my cup, and then text them back and talk to them. Yeah, so knowing the signs, paying attention, like we said, to your calendar for women. Um, and if you're exhausted physically, like checking in how you're feeling physically. If you're really tired and you just don't want to, that's okay.
Mhm. Yeah. And are there certain foods that you go to when you're more tired? Like, do you
Mm,
start to crave more sugar? It's a very common thing because your body needs more. Sugar is like quick energy. I know I definitely gravitate to
mm,
sugar and sweets and chocolate because chocolate has like little bits of caffeine, especially
yes.
when I'm feeling depleted.
Oh yeah.
So, what foods do you go to? But knowing your boundary, if now is not a good time, give them a new time, right? Say, okay, not right now, but can we talk at 7 o'clock, or can we talk tomorrow morning? Really
Hmm.
honor yourself and just know that you don't have to be at people's beck and call. it's really important to honor your time and your space. And if you can give, great. And if you cannot, respect yourself and, give that person another time where you can do that. I did want to talk a little bit about, there's a word in the mental health world called compassion fatigue. And I remember, in the past, like now I have my own definitions around things. So I'm going to share that a little bit, but to me, it's actually empathy fatigue, because let me explain this a little bit. So we have sympathy, which is like, I feel bad for you. We have empathy, which is like, I feel with you. And then we have compassion, which is like, I see you. Okay. So those are my definitions. And sympathy and empathy will often include some level of judgment and pain, right? So when we have judgment, there's usually some form of pain and suffering. So with sympathy, it's like, I feel bad for you. There's judgment there, like, you're going through something crappy, and we're seeing it as a bad thing. And there's nothing wrong with that. We can acknowledge when something is not a good thing. And some people feel better when they get sympathy from people. But then we have something like empathy, where it's like, I feel what you're feeling, and for the person who's an empath, they literally feel like they're taking on your feelings. They feel like they're absorbing it. But really, we have our mirror neurons in our brain are just more activated than not people who are not empathic. So just means your mirror neurons are more activated. Doesn't necessarily mean that you're absorbing them, it's just that you can really put yourself in their shoes. And so there is a level of judgment there as well, that like, I'm judging that what you're going through is bad, so I want to relieve that suffering by suffering with you. Okay, versus compassion, which is kind of like, you see someone suffering and you're rubbing their back, you're holding space for them, you're letting them talk it out, you're reflecting their feelings, right? If they're feeling something, you're saying, yes, you feel frustrated, or you feel sad right now, and you're not taking on their feeling, right? Because they're not going to get better, they're not going to stop suffering by you suffering. So the example I like to give there to help you understand that is that if someone is nauseous and they're throwing up on the side of a cruise ship, you becoming nauseous and throwing up with them is not going to help their nausea.
I like that.
So instead, you want to, again, rub their back, give them some water, hold their hair back. To me, that's compassion. Okay. And as a helper, as someone who's a service provider, if you can stay in compassion and just being in the state of knowing that, everything's going to be okay, right? Everything eventually is going to shift. I think we talked about this in another video, that the one thing you can always count on is change. Our world is constantly in flux. Things are never going to be the same forever. So that's, to me, why I believe everything's going to be okay. We're resilient as a human species. We can get through this. There's going to be a lot that is going to be hard and we're going to learn from, but I truly believe that everything's going to be okay on the other side, whenever that may be. Yeah. One last thing we wanted to talk about. Okay, so we have five things that will unnecessarily drain your energy. Okay.
So
start
the
us
first,
number one.
Yeah. So the first item that can drain your energy is second guessing yourself. So this can happen, of course, especially when we're not feeling super confident. So remember to use your coping skills. But like, you make a decision, which is hard enough, and then you second guess yourself after the fact. Let's try to minimize second guessing yourself and just go with the right decision and saying, I trust that I will make the right decision. And, if things don't go the way I planned, I trust that I will figure it out. That's it.
Yeah. And the thing that helps you with decision making, especially when it's like in a hot moment, I feel for which one feels lighter. And if it's in a moment of like, you have to act fast, I literally go with the thing that feels lighter, because in my experience, my trust with my intuition is that the one that feels lighter is always the highest good for everyone involved. So you can play with that if you want. I know some people might, not be ready for that, but let yourself play that. Like, maybe go on a walk, and instead of going left or right, you feel which one is like lighter. And so you go right today. And then maybe, maybe you'll run into a deer or you'll see an animal. You're like, oh, wow, I wouldn't have seen that if I didn't let myself play this game.
Mm.
So instead of second guessing yourself, I invite you to practice feeling for the lighter option and just trusting that that was the lighter option in that moment, and knowing that you made the right decision.
Mm. So the second one is trying to predict the future. Nobody, I mean, well, some people might have some skills, right? But the future is not the future is not written in stone, right? So, and I know that a lot of times anxiety will contribute to this. It'll say, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if the other thing happens? That is so draining because we do not know for a fact what the future is going to hold, right? So, again, an easy affirmation is whatever happens, I'm going to be okay. Whatever happens, I'm going to figure it out. Just again, to eliminate that extra work, because all that extra worrying about the future, it drains your energy.
For sure. Yeah. All you can do is if you want to think about all the worst case scenarios, all the ways it could go wrong, why don't you also play the game of what are all the best case scenarios that could go right? Yes, let's do that one. How about that?
Good idea. I like that. So the third one is assuming. This one I feel is such a common theme, especially when it comes to relationships with other people, not just romantic relationships, friendship, family. Assuming what the other person is thinking, assuming that the other person feels a certain way, when we could just cut to the chase and talk about it with that person, right? So,
yeah, that's one of the 4 agreements. Don't make assumptions, right?
yes.
So don't make assumptions, just have the conversation and be on with it. It's just so draining making assumptions in your head.
Yes. And the fourth one is judging yourself for feeling a certain way, judging yourself for feeling depressed, for feeling depleted, for feeling anxious. It's like, you already feel crappy. Why are you gonna add judgment to it? And now you just multiplied what you're feeling, right? Depressed about being depressed, anxious about being anxious, Let's try to take off that judgment if we can and just accept, okay, this is how I'm feeling. That's okay.
I'm feeling, lean in, go back to day.
There you go.
Is it day 2, day 3? I can't remember now, but go back to lean in, right? And then let it move through your body and then be on with it.
Yes. You want to do the last one, Karina?
Sure. So the last one here is that's going to unnecessarily drain your energy is to blame. So I know that in the stages of grief, one of the parts of grief is blaming. So there's a lot of grief happening right now. Grief meaning the loss of something. It could be the loss of your way of life. It could be the loss of your job. It could be the loss of any income, a loss of a family member, the fear of a loss of a family member, or the fear of, you know what I mean? Especially for HSPs who think deeply, it's like something might not even have happened yet, but you're thinking about, well, what if it happens? That is grief just in the same as any other grief. And part of that grief process is blaming, is trying to find someone to point the finger at. And this is not going to be helpful. So let yourself just like cut those thoughts off right now. So whether you want to blame a authority figure for not doing the right job, or you want to blame the person who could potentially have started this whole pandemic, it's just not helpful. It's not helpful. We're here now. What are you going to do about it? If anything, what can you learn from all this so we don't, continue it and repeat things in the future? Of course, we want to learn our lessons, but it's just not going to be helpful to blame. Okay, use the information you have to do things differently moving forward.
Okay. So we want to end in a little quote. Before I say it, though, I just want to remind everyone, some of us, we want to help so badly. We want to be on the front lines. We want to be the savior and the hero. But not all of us have the ability to do that right now. So this is why we did this video, so we can help you guys brainstorm, what can little old me help out with? Just any little tiny thing. You can send a text message to a friend, check in, see how they're doing, "Hi, how are you?" Just getting a text from my friend saying that, like, that makes me smile. Something so little, right? Or even if you know any service workers, if you know any nurses or doctors or anyone that is on the front lines, maybe just text them saying, "Thank you for your service." Feeling appreciated helps. That's your active service, appreciating others, right? So, of course, when we were thinking of this activity, I did think of the famous Mother Teresa quote, just as a reminder. She says, "Not all of us can do great things, but we can do small things with great love."
Mm.
So just remember that, guys. We're not all superheroes, but if we all just do a little tiny bit, we can be of service.
Yeah, we can come together for sure. Thank you so much for sharing that. All right,
Thank you.
everyone, we hope you enjoyed our strategy for today. Please let us know how you're liking the series. Please have a conversation with us. We're feeling lonely over here.
Yeah.
And we will be back tomorrow with our next coping strategy. All right, everyone, take care. Bye bye.
Bye.